related development, the Ghana National Association of Teachers is also giving further indications that the country, given its rising cost of living, could further be exposed to the issues of terrorism. General Secretary of GNAT, Thomas Musa, in an interview with Joy News, says that if the situation persists, it will have a dire consequence, and at a time that signals show that the country is at the risk of terror attacks. He's been speaking to my colleague Samuel Mbora on security matters. Listen.
We are dealing with issues of national security. We are dealing with issues of national security. The issue why, or the reason why the welfare matters are critical now is because we are dealing with national security matters at this particular time and era of our existence. And our security men all over the place, they are on alert. Citizens are also being called upon to be on alert, so that if we see anything, they say see something, you say see something, you say something. Now, we cannot engage in the national security dialogue by not taking into consideration the human security. The human security is an integral part of national security. And so, because it is an integral part of it, it is something that we need to address it as quickly as possible, because it could have serious implications on our national security. Look, even in the Bible, why did Moses not go to the promised land? It was because of water. The people of Israel wanted water to drink. And because they could not get water, they engaged in confrontation with Moses. And Moses, out of anger, did what the Lord asked him not to do. And it cost him the promised land. Even in the New Testament, when the devil was tempting Jesus, what did he tell him? Turn the stones into bread. So both Jesus and Moses had the same challenge of they were confronted with the basic necessities of life. And that is why at this particular point in time, we are saying that, look, we are in an era where the basic necessities of workers is going beyond what they can afford. Shelter is going way overboard. Water, food, clothing, and other utility, the electricity bill, all over. Everything that the worker will need or the teacher will need to survive is seriously challenged. And so we are saying that we should not wait for workers, or particularly teachers, begin to agitate before they respond.
As we speak now, what is the level of force, so far as these conditions you are mentioning about the state of livelihood in the country? We know teachers are worse affected. What's the level of force being exerted, or the pressure exerted on you by your members, that you should do something, engage government to do something about, since it has to do with national security concerns? I
can tell you on authority, there is an uneasy camp. Okay, I've told you already that we are coming from a background of 4% and 7%. That didn't sit well with workers. And almost every time, they keep on calling us. The pressure is coming day and night. There is pressure on us. And that is why at this particular point in time, it has become necessary to draw attention to these things, that we are dealing with the issues of human security. And workers are seriously challenged regarding the issue of water, regarding the issue of food, regarding the issue of clothing, regarding the issue of transportation, regarding the issue of paying their light bills, taking care of their families, and on all the other variables that will enable an individual put himself together. Everything is challenged. And we are calling upon the employer, and particularly the government, to do something about this thing. We have not had any conversation about it. There is no conversation, to the best of my knowledge. We've not had any conversation about it. The only thing that is being done now is the issue of the minimum wage. And even that one, it has not yet been concluded. So if the minimum wage has not been concluded, when will the compensation for 2023 be concluded? Because you see, by the Public Financial Management Act 2016, the compensation for each financial year should be completed by April. We have gone past April. We are currently in June. So when will this thing be completed? And then we get it done. And these are the things we are talking about. That there is an uneasy calm. And I repeat, there is an uneasy calm. Because the background where we are coming from is not good. Workers were giving 4% and 7%. Inflation has eroded all the figures that we went to negotiate for. And it is for this reason, and among others, that on 1st May, we articulated the concerns of Ghanaian worker to the President of the Republic. And it is our hope. There has not been any discussion yet. There has not been any discussion yet. The only thing that has been done is the issue of the minimum wage, which there is a technical committee that has worked on it and presented their report. And the minimum wage is quite different from the issue we are talking about now. So we believe that the time for government to respond, particularly because of the issues of the human security, which could have serious implications on national security, we are saying that the time to act is now o'clock. Don't let us take these things and delay it. And I've already indicated there is an easy calm, and you will say we will not respond. It will not help anybody. It will not help. Remember, like I have said, Moses could not go to the promised land because of what? Water. When the devil confronted Jesus, he turned stone to bread. These are basic necessities that when a human being is confronted with these things for a very long time, the temptation could be high.
So I heard the TUC General Secretary making it unequivocal during the May Day celebration that you'll be left with no other option than to, hit the streets. Are you getting there?
The workers are that's what I'm saying. That's what I use the word uneasy calm. Okay? The workers felt that, look, things are not going the way they expected and all that, but we keep on giving them hope. But in as much as we are giving them hope, we believe that the Ghana National Association of Teachers believe that the time has come that we draw the attention of government to it, particularly because we are dealing with the issues of national security and human security being one of the things that teachers are going through now. We are saying that let us address these issues now in the interest of all of us.
What do you want government to do now?
Yes, the major thing now is that, look, the issue of COLA has come up and the issue of the base pay has come up. Discussion should commence. We should not, without any further delay. Look, when you hear in things of national security, do you wait? When somebody is talking about issues of national security, do you wait? You don't wait. Because you know that any delay on matters of national security, any delay could have serious implications on the entire nation. And it is for that reason why we are saying that we are dealing with human security, which could have, or which could have a serious implication on national security. And so let us come together and get it done as soon as possible. Look at the issue of the COLA that has been raised and the issue of the base pay. And it's in the interest of all of us. They'll keeping silence over these things at this particular point in time will not be good for anybody.
Are there hints as to how much government?
Oh, it is not the matter of getting information. It is just a matter of letting government know that given the position and the current economic environment, inflation should be our guide. Why? Because 2021, we went in for 4%. 2022, we went in for 7%. And that it was a difficult thing. But because of the difficulties we were in, we accepted it. This particular time, we believe that it is time for the tears, the pain, and the difficulties and challenges of workers. Let's put some smiles on their face around this time. Particularly because of the human security matters we are talking about here, which could have serious implications on our national security. So please, we need to do something. And the time to act is now o'clock. Let us not wait for this uneasy calm to turn to another thing before we say we want to act. It will not help anybody.
Threats from, not necessarily a threat, but a warning coming through from the Ghana National Association of Teachers. Let's speak now to Richard Kumado. He's a security consultant. Richard, I'm sure that you've been listening into the claims or perhaps the perspective of GNAT on the issues they're raising. Are they well grounded by claiming that the rising cost of living could further expose us to terrorism, as we're hearing in that interview?
Definitely, the cost of living when it goes up affects everything, coupled with the lack of employment. As we know, it has been a major issue for many governments across the globe. And it's important government address it and provide assurance for the people. Linking it to terrorism, I'm not too sure. But if he's talking about demonstrations and insecurity, crime, and upheaval, I can understand that. But the direct threat to terrorism, I'm not too sure about that. But having said that, cost of living is one of the security threats, or is one of the security risk assessments they do at national security. So it's important, it's raising awareness, and we have to take it from there.
They talk about the need to perhaps deal with the labor concerns so it does not degenerate. But the concern really is, to what extent could these matters degenerate to an extent that perhaps it may even border on national security? I'm just trying to connect the dots here, and to understand what it is that NAT may be worried about. It's simply a matter of salaries not being paid or some conditions of service not being met. What else could teachers do on the streets?
Well, definitely, that's where we are all struggling to understand. But I can understand that in recent times, salaries have delayed, cost of living has gone up, their household incomes have been affected and has been dwindling. That could raise some level of agitation. Remember that one depends on two, two depend on three, and four. What is important is to continue the engagement process with government. And it's also important that the terrain we find ourselves with the risks of terrorism and coup d'etat and security upheaval all over the place, government will keep an open line, listen to them, and we take it from there. Other than that, the labor force have a way of creating insecurity for the state, and external saboteurs could take advantage of the space and create mayhem or security threat, which has been realized at the highest level. So I can understand those lines. But to link it directly to terrorism, we would need to speak more about that one with them.
But then we know that this is happening at a time where, of course, ECOWAS has just concluded their high-level stakeholder engagement. You've seen the communique indicating state by state what they intend to do and how there's a need to beef up security all across the region. Is ECOWAS getting their priority right?
I think they are coming back home now, taking off the sanctions from those countries because it has been ineffective, and we told them sanctions are short-term measures. It wouldn't last and it wouldn't help them to achieve the objective. And I think they are coming back home now. They are speaking like diplomats. They want to engage more using diplomatic channels and open up their lines with the bad boys who have taken on the state by staging the coup d'etat. That way, engaging them at the highest level, I think it will help, particularly when we have a president who is the head of, the region and ECOWAS. It wouldn't affect us negatively, but the language now could give us some level of credibility and people will take it more seriously. And I think it's in the right direction.
But then just over the weekend as well, we received reports of some suspicious movements into the northern parts of the country. Till date, we're not sure if the security agencies have apprehended these suspected, figures or persons who are moving into the area that the National Security Leaked document is talking about. Should we be worried about some of these developments?
We should be worried that national security documents that is written, restricted, is coming into the public domain. Bless that. The reason is this: once they say restricted or confidential or top secret, which means is that they have picked up something they are not too sure about it. So they want somebody to cross-check, and that is why it's called intelligence. Now, they have no cross-check, and the document is linked into the public space. If we are not careful, in our attempt to create awareness, we might be creating fear and panic. Because if you have stayed in the north before, where we have stayed for 8 years or 10, that area, Napaduri has mountains, but the other area has low mountains. And they live predominantly by motorbikes, and the roads are, some ways, so people cover themselves or something. You cannot be sure that people might not take the law into their own hands and become citizen vigilantes and start beating one another up. In that way, we are creating problems. That is why I was happy that the letter said restricted, which means verify for us, because this is what we are hearing, or this is what we have picked up by satellite or by informants or whatever it is. Having said that, the letter unfortunately got into the public domain and is creating all manner of anxiety for the people out there. It is important we communicate it properly as security people, and we also help the media to help us in creating awareness. And we will be on the same page, fighting this canker of terrorism and security that has become a bit of a problem for us within the West Africa region.
And some other experts already are pointing to moles within the national security. Do you suspect same?
We don't really know where it was linked, whether at the national security or at the recipient planes. But when it comes to document security or information security within the security setup, there's something we call the need to know or security classification and categorization to prevent the risks of some of these linkages. And I think they will need to look at that aspect again. Documentary security is a major component of security management at the highest level when it comes to classification and sensitivity of documents. I think this particular one, they have not done well, and they must accept responsibility. And going forward, let us deal with it more circumspectly and prudently. Then it will create the space. The media comes on board to help us, and we will manage this element called security properly, which will serve as a tool for safeguarding our national security and national sovereignty.
Okay then, Richard, just hold the line. Let's bring in Mukhtar Mumuni. Mukhtar is Executive Director for the West Africa Center for Counter-Extremism. He's also joining the conversation. A raft of issues and measures, as we are seeing, ECOWAS announced, and also dovetailing into what it is that the Ghana National Association of Teachers is warning about, the fact that we could be more exposed to the threats of terrorism. Mukhtar, let me take your thoughts first off on the fallouts of the ECOWAS high-level meeting, and then what's also happening in terms of the threats or warning that we're getting from the Ghana National Association of Teachers.
Hello, yes, thank you very much for this. Unfortunately, I'm still stuck here somewhere in traffic. But what we're looking at, seeing from the ECOWAS meeting, in some ways seem to be some kind of progress. But for me, I think it's more of the same things we've been seeing from ECOWAS in terms of dealing with the threat of violent extremism in West Africa. For a very long time, we have been very critical of the measures by ECOWAS in terms of the sanctions, in terms of the actions that are intended to punish the leadership of countries, especially Mali, Burkina Faso, and Guinea. So all these measures targeted at leaders have been significantly ineffective in terms of getting them to toe the line of ECOWAS. Those sanctions and measures have, in fact, been more detrimental and more harmful to the local populations in these countries. And it's about time they started looking at very innovative ways to get and motivate these military leaders to toe the path of democracy, and also implement policies and measures that can help put the country back on the path of democracy. We are seeing rising cost of living in all parts of the world generally. But in this part where terrorism exists, it is even more and more damaging in terms of its impact on local populations. I just came back from Senegal and Cote d'Ivoire, and we are looking at the situation on the ground in terms of vulnerable communities and vulnerable spaces. And I think that many of the measures ECOWAS has traditionally used has been not in touch with the reality on the ground. And I think that they need to do better than this.
Yeah, and we're zooming into what's happening in country as well. A lot of groups concerned about this. GNAT as well, talking about the rising cost of living. We just had Richard Kumando talk about how that could be a factor in fueling tension across the country. But then how do we avert it, I guess?
In many ways, I have made the argument that violent extremism in West Africa is a product of the manifestation or the reality or manifestation of the anguish of citizens who have lost faith in the country's ability to offer them the entitlements of citizenship. And that is what we are seeing being played out. If you see situations of economic hardship, rising cost of living, it creates fatigue within the population. And so little inconveniences and conflicts are amplified by harsh economic realities. And these are things that could motivate and amplify the risk we are looking at right now on the ground. So yes, economic factors are a big factor in terms of the threat we are looking at. And so it's important that government takes a look at these measures that are intended at targeting economic vulnerabilities, social vulnerabilities, and other issues relating to
Well, I get the point you're making there, but it appears that we're having some challenges with the connection there. We'll get back to Mukhtar shortly, but Richard, let's wrap up with you. Going forward, how do we resolve this matter? It appears it's unending because almost all the time the heads of state are talking about it, even within the country as well. Issues of terrorism has been, rehashed by the authorities, and we're wondering when exactly all of this will pass away. Richard, when do you feel we can put an end to this?
Brother, I think there are three things we have to do properly, or we seem to be doing it haphazardly. One, when it comes to internally, how we look at remuneration and household income, particularly for those who work for government, that issue would need to be addressed once and for all. Other than that, government comes in, government goes out. And this whole issue about agitations and from labor front and from all manner of places, we've been playing lip service with this for all these years. Let's consider best practices elsewhere, because that is the key factor that will also fuel your internal insecurity and create a platform for any other person to take you unaware. When it comes to the heads of state and the way they will take their presidency country by country, I think the world has changed, and they would need a little bit of knowledge when it comes to geopolitics and how security management can be aligned to governance. If they are able to create that spectrum and put in people who understand it properly and work at it, we'll be fine. And generally, you will need the support of the media and the country as a whole. That is why when you start campaign, you will have to find creative ways of sustaining the campaign. Other than that, if this terrorism campaign gets faded out, it will become like the Operation Stop, Galamsey Stop, and all those things we started and we never achieved anything. So if we're able to take our time and do this one after the other, I think we'll be fine as a nation. We wouldn't have many of these troubles many of our guys within the sub-region are faced with.
Okay then. Thank you, Richard. Let's wrap up with you, Mukhtar Mumuni. Mukhtar.
Yes, I agree strongly with Richard when you talked about aligning governance with security measures or security policies. That is very, very key. We need to incorporate into security measures governance issues, good governance, and issues that relate to the economy and livelihoods of people. If we look at what is happening in several parts of the West African sub-region, where terrorism continues to be a huge factor, the challenge of governance and the challenge of the economy, it's very, very pervasive. And so we have to look at it from also economic angle, the vulnerabilities that exist. How do we ensure people who work are adequately remunerated to ensure that they have the motivation to work and continue to work positively? How do we create job opportunities for young people, especially, to be able to participate positively in society? How do we ensure that the social tensions among ethnic groups and very vulnerable groups are resolved and resolved sustainably? These things are key. Like I talk about conflicts and conflict and the pervasive role of conflict. It is important that we do more than we actually are doing to resolve the conflicts that exist within our societies, because these are vulnerabilities that play a huge factor in terms of violent extremism in our spaces.
All right then, Mukhtar, we're grateful for your time.